Usually my professionalism stretches as far as not getting a picture with the person I'm interviewing these days. I've kind of tried to move away from doing that a little bit. Actually, no, that's probably not true.
Mikey, we're going to jump straight into it because there is so much going on. But first and foremost, apart from the fact that everything is pink, more on that later, it's getting close. Liverpool just over a week away as we record. You are a frequent flyer for Portman Road and everywhere else following the town. Your heart rate getting a little bit excited? You having any panic dreams yet of being boshed by Liverpool yet?
No, not yet, but yeah, it's definitely getting real now, isn't it? But it really does feel like a long time ago, doesn't it, that we played against Huddersfield Town at Portman Road. It feels like a lifetime ago. I can't remember a pre-season that's felt this long, and obviously we had the excitement at times of following England in the Euros in amongst that, but for whatever reason, it's just felt like it's gone on forever and ever. The Euros was a nice distraction. The Olympics has been a beautiful distraction. And obviously, I've been busy doing my Ipswich Town stuff for work, which has helped build the excitement and a little bit of anxiety as well. But yeah, it's getting real now, isn't it? The third kit is out. All of the tickets have been sold. Some of us have been lucky enough to get tickets for the first away game as well. So yeah, it is getting real.
It is getting real, and there's three things we're going to talk about. We'll deal with the kit first, the new third kit. But Mikey has produced. Are we going to call it a documentary? Am I called to call it a documentary? Premier League stories feature on Ipswich Town at the very least. Feature length Premier League stories on Ipswich Town. We're going to get all the inside goss from Mikey about putting that together. Got some questions from our Telegram folks as well. But also, Mikey, in his day job, has been involved in the media day that was at the club yesterday on Thursday, as we record this as well. So we're going to get some inside track on that as well. So it's kind of a nice sort of segue from the chat that we had with Izzy at the start of the summer about how the Premier League circus changes things. And now we've got some real examples of it. And Mikey's got first-hand experience of it and going to share it with us. And another kind of added bonus feature that we're going to do this week, I've done something bad, Mikey. I've bought myself the 24-25 Match Attacks pack, and I've got 3 packs of stickers. There's not stickers yet. Stickers will come of the cards. Adrenaline XL. I have no idea what this means, but what we're going to do is so we're going to do kit, Premier League stories, media day for every feature. Whilst you're giving a hopefully exciting, elaborate answer to give me plenty of time, I'm going to open these and see what I find. And I'm hoping that there's an Ipswich Town shiny or a limited edition something or other in there that will be exciting, because otherwise this feature is going to fall flat on its arse. But should we start with the kits? I've got a picture of it. Let me put it on the screen. It's pink, isn't it? And I've through the podcast, for those watching on YouTube, tried to honor the pinkness. But what's your immediate reaction to that, Mikey?
Well, I had heard rumours of a pink kit, and I even heard rumours of the Fram Castle outline, and it did make me a little bit nervous. But on seeing it, I don't mind it at all. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan, but third kits, they have to be different, don't they? And the first one was such a hit, the blackout kit, but you can't do that every single time. I really liked last year's as well, which was a throwback to the classic shirt from the early 80s, but they can't just keep indulging us sort of nostalgic kit nerds, can they? They can't. It's
not even us 80s stuff, is it?
Yeah, and I know like a lot of people want an Escape to Victory shirt. I want a cream and black stripe number with a collar like the 96 to 98 away shirt. But frankly, that's not going to sell as many shirts as a pink one that's been designed by our brilliant sponsor, Ed Sheeran. So it's nice and unique. You can definitely say that about it. And I think it's going to sell really well. And the reality is kind of that's the point of a third shirt, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly right. And there's already been posts on social media of people just buying it because it's a nice looking thing. not because they're Ipswich fans. The opinion, I think, of some of the fan base is maybe a little bit more mixed. A pink shirt is always going to trigger certain folk, isn't it? I quite like it. I think it's a pretty open, well, not an open secret, is it? That's kind of an oxymoron, but rumors had gathered pace about what it might be, and in my mind it looked a lot worse. So I guess in that respect it's much better than what I'd envisaged it to be. And the club have put a little tweet out with the kind of the motifs, the design motifs. Suffolk pink, that's a new phrase for me. I didn't know that there was such a thing, but Suffolk pink, folks. I hope that the podcast background, I picked Suffolk pink on the palette. Framlingham Castle, you mentioned that, Mikey, the skyline there. And the Wolsey Gate is somewhere demonstrated there as well. Portman Road sound waves, Mikey, and Suffolk coastline.
Is that sound wave from when we score a goal, or is it for the famous Suffolk Sigh trademarked?
Someone's going to have to try and put that through Audacity or some other audio software and see what. Maybe it's going to like when you play one of those 70s rock albums backwards and some really eerie, ominous message gets played. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's like Norwich City, we're coming for you secretly. I don't know, but at least there's some thought gone into it. And yeah, I agree with you. It's unique, at least in terms of the design motifs. Pink. There's a couple of pink Premier League away kits. I think this season it's even away kits rather than third kits. So we're not the first to do the pink, just as much as we weren't the first to do the blackout kit. But it looks great. And Mikey, you probably know this better than I. It's not going to be a huge amount of opportunity to use it. I'd imagine we'd be able to get away with the burgundy one at the Etihad, won't we?
Yeah, I think the burgundy will be fine at the Etihad, but yeah, not sure if we're going to be able to use it that much. But one thing I would say is I hope that we continue to wear the blue kit as much as possible. I know there was a couple of times over the last couple of years where we've worn an away kit when maybe we didn't need to, but generally we're not the worst for doing that sort of thing. I want to see Ipswich in blue wherever possible. I think the days of the blue shorts to avoid short clashes is probably gone, hasn't it? But yeah, I guess time will tell how many times we'll see this shirt. Maybe we'll end up seeing it more than the other away shirt, but we'll see. That'll actually be a decision for the referees to make a lot of the time, the match managers, I believe.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's protocols about colour blindness as well. It's quite dark pink as well, so it doesn't really make a massive contrast difference, does it, to what we've already got? Maybe more so the burgundy kit than the blue. But anyway, it's a third kit. It's out there. If you want to get excited about it, then let us know in the comments. If you're quite chill and relaxed about it, like I think Mikey and I are, we could admire it for what it is. But it's I'm not rushing out to buy it, but maybe it will be one of those had a few beers on a Friday night, stick it in the basket. I'm going to buy it and stick a Premier League badge on it, let's be honest. Update from the match attacks. I've got Casemiro, Jan Paul Van Hecker, I guess that is, McAllister. Nice. I've got a fire Brennan Johnson. There's a vague Ipswich Town link there. Magic touch from Mbuemo. What else have we got? A free digital packet. That's exciting for me. Keane Lewis Potter from Brentford. Grealish.
Nice.
And
that's a good pack.
Canate. So there we go. We'll see what happens in the second pack. If that excited you, stay tuned for more openings later on. Maybe if I had another camera, I could kind of pan down, but no one's to see my chubby fingers. Let's talk about Premier League stories, Mikey. Do you want to give us a little bit of context in terms of, we don't really ask you too much about your day job, even though it's really cool and much more exciting than anything that the rest of the six of us are doing. But you've been involved in this for quite some time now, and so the fact that you're doing it is not something special or a surprise, is it?
Yeah, so this is going to be my 7th season working for Premier League Productions. And for those that don't know, Premier League Productions is basically the Premier League's in-house production company who provides content and TV shows and live television action for the international broadcasters. So while shows, the magazine shows like Preview, which I've worked on for the last 3 seasons, and PL Stories, which I've worked on this summer, they go up onto all of the broadcasters, or they're available to all of the broadcasters, and the domestic ones take it there's also a lot of stuff going on at Premier League Productions, which English fans won't see unless they're on holiday somewhere, and they might spot it. But yeah, so I've worked in the programming department for the last 3 seasons. And I think it was about April time where a colleague of mine who works on PL Stories said, Mikey, if Ipswich get promoted, do you reckon you'd fancy coming across to PL Stories and doing the Ipswich special? Because nobody on the team really knows anything about them. And I was like, well, I haven't really thought about that, but I'd definitely be interested. So I fired off a quick email to the senior producer, and I said, I hope I'm not tempting fate, blah, 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 but you may or may not know I'm a big Ipswich fan. I do a fantastic Ipswich Town podcast called Blue Monday. And I've got all of this sort of storytelling experience from working on the preview show. And I was like, if there's any opportunity for me to work on it, then please can you let me get involved? And then obviously we did get promoted in May, right in amongst the most busy part of the Premier League season. So I'm trying to negotiate getting off preview to the season, which is what I was set to be doing, and getting on PL Stories for Ipswich Town. And luckily, yeah, the powers that be enabled me to do it. So most of us assistant producers at PLP, we work on fixed term contracts. So the day after the season finishes, we're basically out of contract, but we'll have signed a new one for the upcoming season. So I was due to be coming back in at the start of July, but they managed to bring me back in a week early to plan my shoots, because it was a really tight turnaround because they needed to get it out this week. Then I went on holiday, then I came back and then did the shoots, which started with just a really surreal day. The first 2 shoots I did on the same day, and they were with Luke Chambers in his beautiful house just outside Ipswich. And then in the afternoon, well, we drove, I think we drove to Suffolk Food Hall, actually. Had a very pretentious lunch. I didn't have a sausage roll, actually, but I had nice salad. And then we drove over to Matt Holland's house, which is on the Essex-Suffolk border. And so the reason for filming, obviously it was filmed in beautiful summer conditions. I'd looked ahead and made sure that the weather was looking good. I wanted to tap into the fact that Ipswich, people from outside of Ipswich who come and play for the football club end up staying there. And I also wanted to tap into the rural aspect, because although it's really nice that Ipswich fans in this country are getting to watch this show, primarily the target audience are international fans who, a lot of them won't have even heard of Ipswich, which might seem nuts to us, but some of them won't know much about us, and then others just want to be reintroduced to Ipswich, and they want to know, blimey, yeah, I remember Ipswich from 22 years ago, but what's happened since? So while it was, a love story for me about the history of Ipswich Town Football Club and sunny Suffolk and all of that stuff, it was also kind of supposed to be an informative show for those fans around the world who love the Premier League but don't know anything about Ipswich Town.
Yeah, and that's really interesting that you say that, because that's a big area of opportunity for the club, right? In terms of, we talked about the pink shirt and the Ed Sheeran that came out through the episode as well, didn't it? But as someone who's local, as someone who's lived away from the area for 13 years and then came back, I've kind of, it was a love letter, Mikey. I'm hopefully take this as the compliment that it's definitely meant. I thought it was brilliant, and because it was a love letter to ITFC and it was a love letter to Ipswich and Suffolk. And as I said, as someone who's known the history of the football club for the last 22 plus years, and someone who lives here and knows all about it, sometimes you need a nice little nudge and a reminder. So actually, I think as much as it isn't necessarily geared towards a local audience, a lot of love in our Telegram group, on Twitter as well when it went out, Mikey. And you have to give yourself a real pat on the back. The people who know about the club, who know about the area, found something to enjoy and love about it as well. It was an ode to Suffolk. So for that, massive credit to you and your team behind the scenes, because it's you are just one man. There's a team involved. Yeah. Talk to us about how many people and the production.
Yeah, so it's obviously a big collaboration. So I was sort of given the editorial license for the show. So I'm the one that's sort of picking the picking out the narrative and things like that. But then I worked with 2 cameramen for the shoots that I did, sometimes just one. So one of them was a guy called David Reyes, and I made sure I picked him because he's from Ipswich, and his brother is Mauricio Reyes, who is a
Telegram member,
one of our Telegram members for Blue Monday. And I know that David, although he lived in Ipswich for the early years of his life, isn't actually super passionate about the football club or the area. So I was kind of like, I know he's a fantastic cameraman, but I also want to show him how amazing Suffolk is. I also work with a lad from Southend called Danny Flynn, who came up. Even though he's in Southend, he's kind of one of the local cameramen for Premier League productions. So he came up and did a few of the days there as well. And then you have a production team at base who are trying to get you the licensing to show certain things. We had to collaborate with the EFL for all of that footage. But then I'm also constantly badgering Ipswich Town Football Club for stuff from their YouTube channel, especially the fantastic Town in 25 and Town in 5 videos. Like, without that, the storytelling would have been so hard. You'd just be watching a couple of people talking about it with a couple of camera angles, and that's nowhere near as exciting as watching the action unfold in front of your eyes. So I have to give a huge thank you to the media team at Ipswich Town. So that's Marcus Nash and Andy Warren. I worked with quite closely. The club account manager at PLP is Tommy Ardner, and he's already built a really strong relationship with those guys. And it was, they'll have to forgive me if I get these names wrong, but it was Jess Winslow and Harry Chenery who were at Portman Road physically sending me the footage. But they weren't the only ones sending me footage. Some of it came from stock images, Getty, things like that. But some of it, Rich, was sent to me by you, which just made it so much easier because I knew what you'd have, and I knew that you'd send it straight to me. So I didn't have to go around the houses to get hold of it, because getting licensing for footage is one thing, but then actually getting the footage is another.
Yeah.
And for some of the older stuff, it was easier to come straight to you. So a big thank you to you as well for that. Trying to think. Yeah. Well, and then of course the edit was done by, so I sat in an edit suite for 6 days with a good friend of mine, Paul Sexton, who's a fantastic creative editor, and he's a massive Portsmouth fan. And I think it helps that as a real football fan, he understands how it feels, and he understands the feelings and the emotion of football, especially in the lower leagues. And he's seen his own club go through stagnation and come out the other side a happier place and a happier club. And he's someone that's moved away from the area but still holds the Portsmouth South Sea area dearly to his heart. So he really got it, and he put his heart and soul into it as well. And without all of those guys, I don't know what I'd have done. I'm sure I'd have gone and found Luke Chambers and chewed his ear off, but I might not have been able to make the show what it was.
I was going to chuck in a couple of extra people into the mix in your team. You mentioned Chamber, you mentioned Matt Holland, but big shout out to Mark Beck, a name that someone from the kind of Ipswich fan community that a lot of folk will know, and another Telegram member as well. And our good mate GB, who was doing his best acting, looking at memorabilia on the Greyhound wall, and the rest is hysteria, etc. Those guys added some real colour to it as well, didn't they?
Yeah, so I think it's so Premier League Stories quite often done shows like this for promoted teams, Luton, and there was a good one on Leeds United a few years ago that a colleague of mine did. And I was looking through it and I was like, I think fans are really important in this. They're a really important voice for it. And you could use a journalist, but there's more sort of feeling behind it, I think, generally, if you're using fans. But finding fans that are really passionate but are also good at communicating it is slightly difficult. And I needed an older face. GB ticked that box for me brilliantly. But I know that he's also a really good storyteller, and I knew that he'd be up for coming to the Greyhound. Although, believe this or this might be the biggest shock of this show, he had a lime and soda water, which I'm still in shock.
Wow. But Mark was on the coffee as well. Very professional.
And well, that coffee cup, I'll give you a little sneak behind the curtain here. That coffee cup was empty. That was very much a prop. Mark took me up on having a pint of
had a latte or something in it.
No, that's just the magic
Tricks
of television
the
and
trade.
the fantastic camera work. So yeah, I got those two involved. I needed a young voice, and Mark's really good because I know that he's really good at social commentary. He's a really smart lad, and I also know that he started supporting Ipswich after we were last really good. So I kind of wanted a voice like
Poor
that.
guy.
Whereas GB is at the other end of the spectrum. He's literally seen it all.
He's the biggest
and we're
glory
never
hunter
gonna
ever.
Scale, we're never going to scale the heights that he saw in his youth. Whereas Mark has never seen the like. And then I needed somebody from the good old days, from a playing perspective as well. And who better than our legendary former midfielder, centre back, right back, hospitality guy, John Walk. And I interviewed him in a pub out in rural Bury St Edmunds area. And it was like an evening with John Walk while we set up the cameras. He missed my message to say, can we put it back half an hour? So he was an hour earlier than we were kind of hoping. And sometimes that's a bit of a challenge for a cameraman when they're setting up and they feel it can be quite difficult sometimes, because obviously I can sit there and try and chat with them, but if the chat isn't flowing, it can be quite hard work. But we were just sat in this room next to the pool table while John Walk basically went through his whole after dinner speech routine, warming himself up for the interview. And yeah, Walkie was great. And then while I was on holiday, the first interviews happened at the training ground. So that was Simon Milton, Connor Chaplin, and Axel Tuanzebe. Obviously, I was gutted I couldn't do that. Simon Milton, it was actually down to be somebody else. So I'd written an interview for somebody else at the club. I can't remember who it was, but it was actually just pure luck that it ended up being Simon Milton, and he kind of really helped narrate the story.
He did a lot of weaving of the kind of the in between years, didn't he?
Yeah, which was really good. So I needed people from different eras, but then you realise that everyone wants to hear from the current team that have lived these last couple of years, and the manager as well. And that was what we ended up doing in the second week of shooting. And yeah, that was all of my years supporting Ipswich and all of the places I've been to support them. I'd never been to the training ground. So that was a really exciting experience for me. The first day, I got to interview Sam Morsey, and the players were actually training in the Dome, which for me was quite surreal. And just watching how competitive they all get in a game of head tennis was quite something. And then Morsey came straight off the back of training to do the interview with me, and thoroughly enjoyed speaking to him. Just from a producer's point of view, he keeps eye contact with the interviewer the whole time, and he keeps his eye line. He doesn't shuffle. And if you go back to that picture, Rich, I don't know if anyone's noticed how massive his legs are. I don't think that angle does it justice, but he has got enormous legs, let's put it that way. And then the next day, I knew that I was filming with George Hurst, and it was kind of going to be for this like day in the life kind of aspect. And I'm going to concede that it didn't quite come out as I hoped it would, because I'd never filmed that sort of thing before. So I was in George Hurst's car with a cameraman, and we filmed him. We sort of faked him arriving at the training ground. Then
not running away from Scottish fans.
Followed him walking into the change room. He said hello to Wes Burns when I was out of the room. I walk in and I ask them if they could say hello to each other, and Wes Burns said, "Well, I've already said hello to him." And Wes Burns did it in a really sarcastic way. And I was like, oh God, I've really got off on the wrong foot with him. Then they're sat together having breakfast, and I have to interrupt their chat to ask George a few more questions. But George Hurst was an absolute gentleman, and he gave some really nice answers in the car, really emotive answers about his injury and things like that. But because I just hadn't quite nailed it from a production standpoint, the only bit that we could use really was the stuff in the canteen. But hopefully that was a nice way to sort of bring us back into the present day and starting to look forward to the new season. Yeah,
and then I could ask you lots of questions about this photo, but I'm just going to put it up. Apologies for those listening on podcast, but this is a photo of Mikey and Kieran McKenna. You watched training, didn't you, Mikey? Give us the insight on that.
Yeah, so yeah, on that second day when I filmed with George Hurst, that was kind of the last thing we had to do was film training, and we the other crew, I'll get to that in a minute, mic'd up Kieran McKenna, and we got to watch the first half an hour of training. And yeah, it's probably obvious for those that follow Ipswich on social media that they split the squad up into groups each day, and they wear different colours, and they're competing against each other in every single aspect of training. And there's winners for each sort of section, and then there's an overall winner at the end of the session as well. And they're all desperate to win, especially Sam Morsey in head tennis. Like, that was absolutely ridiculous how intense he was doing that. And he is incredible at it as well. He was at the net and he had Wolfenden at the back. Wolfenden can just head the ball onto a sixpence from 20 yards, no problem. Really good with both feet. Morsey will just hover at the net and somehow manage to manipulate his foot over the net and constantly hit smashes with topspin. But yeah, I've digressed a little bit. Getting to watch them train, probably the most exciting bit was watching the overlapping runs and cutbacks, because that's what we see on the match day, isn't it? We see them do that. But what was interesting, I was stood with Andy Warren, formerly of Kings of Anglia, now one of the heads of media at Ipswich Town, and he was saying, watch how all of the players do every aspect of this drill. So one minute you're watching Leif Davis overlap and cut the ball back for Connor Chaplin. The next minute you've got George Edmondson overlapping on the left wing and cutting the ball back for Cameron Burgess, who's flying into the box. And that just shows that they want every player to be equally technical, and it also helps create competition and things like that. And I know one player who's had a fantastic pre-season is Marcus Harness, and he looked in fantastic shape, and in all of those attacking drills looked really, really sharp.
It just, I mean, we knew this, didn't we? Meticulous. The players, I've loved the sessions. Great to hear the kind of competitive stuff, but the flexibility and
yeah, and sorry, but just to jump in again, McKenna he's so vocal in training. He's very, very hands-on, and obviously I was following the ball a lot of the time, but a couple of other people said, "Oh, did you see him pull this player aside and start talking through things?" Loads and loads of detail, just little details. He spoke to Liam Delap for 5 minutes at the end of the training session on the first day and was just talking him through things. And you think, as a player that's just joined the club like Liam Delap, to have that 5 minutes of just intense discussion, just learning exactly what he wants from him, that's going to just clear his mind so much and just hopefully make him the player that we all hope he can be. And yeah, it's a little bit embarrassing because I wasn't doing the McKenna interview. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit now about something that's coming up that's exciting next week. And I think, I might be wrong on this, but I think this goes up on YouTube. So this is a shorter documentary, an 8-minute documentary that is being done by Premier League Productions, but from a company called Dead Films. And this is going to be a more artistic Ipswich Town mini documentary. And it's called Ipswich Town Under the Skin. So there's lots of interviews with different fans. They've used different fans to me, and they've tried to film them in their sort of natural environment. So they filmed, you might have spotted the farmer on the tractor. He's going to star in that mini documentary. They interviewed a fan in the pub where we interviewed John Walk. They interviewed a guy that a lot of Ipswich fans might know, Irvin Flaherty, who's a postman. He's going to appear in it. And they've obviously got the interview. They filmed the interview with Kieran McKenna and shared it with me. They filmed the interview with Luke Wolfenden, which people will have seen in the show, but they also have interviews with Amari Hutchinson and Mark Ashton. And apparently Mark Ashton was incredibly impressive. And he quite possibly is going to be the star of the show for the Ipswich Under the Skin, which I believe is out next Thursday.
Cool. Well, we'll retweet that and then send a link around for that one. I've got some questions on Premier League stories and the production of it, but it also relates to what you were doing this Thursday that's just been. Before we hear from our friends at Wells, though, I have to announce the latest batch of my XL Adrenaline cards. Not a clue, Mikey. Brighton. Buona Notte. Is that right? Don't know.
Yeah.
Onyenka, Tarkowski, Vicario, Spurs. Oh, I've got a shiny Aston Villa. There you go. Still yet to get anything Ipswich. You've got Allison, got Saka. That's all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Kufal.
Okay.
Lacking
It's got to be an
Ipswich.
Ipswich player in that pack,
Third
surely.
part. Keep everything crossed for the third part. We'll be back for it after hearing from our friends at Atwell's.
Blue Monday is proudly brought to you in partnership with our friends at Atwell Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for work on property or business law. Their client care has repeatedly been recognised as outstanding, and they are people-focused with a plain English approach which sets them apart. They have offices in Ipswich, Colchester and London, and to find out more, head to atwells.com.
There you go, Mikey, doing more excellent work this time for the Blue Monday podcast. And also massive thank you to our friends at One Stop Badges as well. You can find a link in the podcast or YouTube description to get 10% off promo items of your choice, badges, all that kind of stuff. I need to come up with the second or a third example of promotional items, Mikey, don't I? But we'll get used to that over the course of the season. These are our partners throughout, and we're really grateful for their support to the podcast. You can show your support for the podcast by giving us a thumbs up or a subscribe on your apps of choice, and join us for the live chat in the Flagship Show on Sunday. Ben's in the host chair, and we're just figuring out a bit of content, probably be very Nice-centric. And then next week, as we said right at the top, it's getting real. We have got pretty much a whole week of content for you coming up. More details about that on Sunday, but we're super excited for the return of the Prematch Show, of course, and talking about actual football matches as well. So Blue Monday, itfc.co.uk is our website. All the links to audio, video feeds, all of our social media sites, our Telegram group, if you want to join the conversation and get involved in the match day chat on Saturday next week. But everything you need there, the links to Atwell's, the links to One Stop, all there as well. Mike, I'm going to give you some questions from our Telegram group, aforementioned Telegram group. Tom asks, how many hours did the Premier League stories piece take to put together? And is there any unreleased footage? You kind of answered that, but he says outtakes / deleted scenes that you can talk about. We've heard about a little bit George Hurst. Is there a director's cut, like a 2-hour special just for Ipswich Town fans that's coming out? Or give us some insight on how long it took and how big the archive is.
Yeah, so I guess I had probably 5 or 6 days in the planning process, which was finding guests, booking venues. Shout out to Dan at the Greyhound, by the way. I haven't shouted out the Greyhound yet, have I? They hosted 2 of our interviews on one of the days. 5 or 6 days of planning, and also going through as much archive stuff as possible. But then you end up doing a lot of that on the fly when you're in edit, because you realise that you don't have enough footage to cover everything that the players and contributors are talking about. And then, so it was 5 days technically of shootings. Well, more than that actually, because there was the one day that I missed. So yeah, 6 days of shooting up in Suffolk. And then it was 6 full days of editing, and they were longer than normal some of the days. So yeah, it's roughly like 3.5, 4 weeks worth of work, and a lot of thought going into it, and a lot of care at the end as well. It goes into sound mixing at the end, and there's a few different things that PL Stories have to do that I hadn't really experienced before, because in the past I've always been producing segments or features for shows, whereas this was like the show in its entirety. So yeah, a lot of time and effort went into it. As for outtakes, I guess a lot of the things that Graham Blackburn said,
I was going to say there might be a GB special.
wasn't fit for TV maybe at times, but there were some absolute gems in there as well which did make it in. It is always a little bit of a shame when you're passionate about the subject. All of the interviews that we did were, so every single player or contributor that you saw would have been interviewed for at least 10 minutes. Kieran McKenna, I think, was interviewed for 20 minutes, and you're only maybe saw 2 or 2.5 minutes worth of Kieran McKenna's interview there. Hopefully they'll have used different answers in the Under the Skin episode, so you'll get to see different parts of it there. unfortunately didn't get to use much of Axel Tuanzebe's interview because of the way that the narrative I switched it up a little bit. And yeah, there's maybe not outtakes, but yeah, there's one or two outtakes on the media access day involving Harry Clark, a couple of things that we had to get rid of to make sure that they never see the light of day. But yeah, not so much for the PL stories.
Never mind. Well, shout out Harry Clark. Should we go there next? The media day. We'll get you to plug where folk can find their Premier League story stuff and the under the skin thing at the end. A couple of more questions which kind of relate maybe to both. When dealing with Rob asks, when dealing with the staff and players, is it appropriate / helpful to mention that you're a Town fan, or do you prefer to position yourself purely in a professional context? I mean, we can look at the photo here. I'm not sure there's a huge amount of professional context to that photo, Mikey, with Kieran McKenna. I mean, we'd all do it, wouldn't we? But
so I think usually my professionalism stretches as far as not getting a picture with the person I'm interviewing these days. I've kind of tried to move away from doing that a little bit. Actually, no, that's probably not true. I do still get pictures with people that I'm working with, because
there's a picture with you with Ben Johnson that we shared.
That was a few years ago. Normally, I don't like on a match day. If I'm working on a match day, I won't even talk to the players. I won't even try and court conversation with any of them. You try and just be as invisible as possible. So maybe on a match day, I'll be a bit more professional with that sort of thing. But what I did find was when I was doing these interviews, I kept referring to Ipswich as we and then correcting myself. I probably should have just not corrected myself, because especially on the first day, I did, just because you're trying to have small talk with these people. And when you know a bit about them, it's easier. But they might wonder, why, like Luke Wolfenden was probably thinking, why does this guy know that I have dogs, when I asked him how his dogs were? But that's because obviously I'm from the area, so I know that he has dogs and I follow him on Instagram. Whereas a TV producer from Sky Sports, for example, that might get sent along wouldn't know that about him. Luke Wolfenden, by the way, fun story, when I asked him that question, told me, I've only got 2 dogs, but I've got 6 guinea pigs. So
that came up on the ITFC official podcast, didn't it?
Yeah, he's got a busy home life with those. Apparently, he wasn't allowed a guinea pig when he was a kid, so that's why
he's waking up for it now, is he?
But yeah, I mean, I did take a lot of stick off my cameramen and the sound op and various other people that I was obviously trying to have a chat with all of the Ipswich players wherever possible. On that final day where I did get the picture of Kieran McKenna, I wasn't particularly smartly dressed. And I was wearing a golf top, but George Hurst recognised the brand, and we had a quick chat about golf, which was really nice, because I hadn't even told George Hurst that I was an Ipswich fan. I was being as professional as I could, and then we ended up having a nice chat about golf and the local golf courses in the area. That was a highlight for me.
Yeah, well, yeah. I hesitate to ask this question because I'm not sure my ego can take it, Mikey, let alone you in doing it in person. We'll talk about the media day now as well, and what that's all about. But did you, Romeo asks, did you get the impression that any of the players recognised you? Might they be secret fans of the Blue Monday podcast? There you go. I have to ask it. It's a good question from Romeo, but can you sugarcoat the answer a little bit with your no?
So I don't know, but I did get the impression from chatting to them that if they did listen to an Ipswich Town podcast, they would listen to Blue Monday.
There you go. And take that. Very diplomatic answer. But no one, your reputation didn't precede you at least when people met you for the first time.
No, but the guys at the club recognised me and all said nice things about Blue Monday. Marcus Nash, who's head of media, was very complimentary about the Blue Monday podcast and how professionally it's done, Rich. So yeah, we can take a bit of credit from that.
Lovely stuff. The media day then, Mikey, by the look of socials, reminded me of that viral clip of Jimmy Bullard walking to camera when he was at Hull and all the outtakes for that. Yeah. It wasn't just that, was it? There's quite a lot of stuff yesterday going on, wasn't there?
Yeah, so in the route, there's like 8 different green screen type things going on. So it's called a media access day, and every Premier League club has one in the weeks leading up to the new season. So all of the domestic broadcasters have stands. So although Amazon shared the stand that I was on, TNT Sport have their own stand. Getty Images, who do all the official photographs, which I believe are used for Panini stickers, amongst other things, have their own stand. Obviously, Sky, I think, have more than one stand. Premier League Productions have a few stands. They have a promo stand, a digital and creative stand, which hopefully we'll start to see the fruits of that labour in the next few weeks. My old boss, Shelley, who's actually from Woodbridge, she was sort of leaning on me like, which players do you think are going to be good at this strand? And apparently they absolutely nailed it. Wes Burns, it turns out, knows everything there is to know about Lord of the Rings. So there's going to be a Wes Burns Lord of the Rings video out. I think George Edmondson was one of the stars from the digital and creative perspective. I think Leif Davis has done some fantasy Premier League stuff. And I was working on it's called Broadcaster Messages. So yeah, just speaking generally, yeah, that's where Getty Images get their pictures and Sky get their little promos, GIFs are made and things like that. And over the course of the season, they'll be used by the broadcasters to help promote games. I was working on Broadcaster Messages. So, for example, with Kieran McKenna, who I got to do, Viaplay, who's one of the Scandinavian broadcasters, had some broadcast messages. So I'd say to Kieran, can you repeat after me? Watch your Premier League football live and exclusive on Viaplay. And Kieran McKenna would just remember exactly what I've said and deliver it perfectly. He didn't need a second take in any of them.
You didn't have been if you're listening to if you're listening to an Ipswich Town podcast, make it Blue Monday though.
Unfortunately not, because that might have got me in a little bit of hot water with work, because you only get 5 minutes tops with each one. But yeah, I guess I can give you a summary on who did well in the broadcaster messages. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, as I mentioned, Harry Clark, unbridled enthusiasm. So one of the things that we get the players to do when they come over to our stand is to take a selfie with a Polaroid camera, which is a little bit tricky when you've got arms like Connor Chaplin, but easier for the likes of Cameron Burgess. Harry Clark was just so enthusiastic about it. He wanted to pick up every single prop that we had. He wanted to put Christmas hats on and things like that, because we had to do festive messages for a broadcaster. And then he just bounces over and he's just such a ball of energy. He can't help but crack jokes, even if they're not necessarily appropriate for broadcast. But Harry Clark, another thing that Ipswich fans can look forward to, he did, for Premier League Productions, he did what's called The Big Interview, which he did with Matt Holland. And that was filmed this week, and that's going to be going out very soon. So I think that's going to be a 26-minute show, which is basically Matt Holland having a chat with Harry Clark with lots of other nice Ipswich stuff entwined. But yeah, Harry Clark was incredibly enthusiastic. Kieran McKenna, as I said, just nailed all of it. Just so good at it. Connor Chaplin has a really good memory, so he only has to hear something once, and he'll be able to memorize it really easily, which is really helpful for that sort of thing. Axel Xavier's obviously done this before, and he was basically showing off. It didn't matter what language he had to speak in; he just step up and do it. And Sam Morsey, having met him last week and sort of seeing him in his natural environment, I was a little bit intimidated by him last week, and I was trying to have a chat with him before we had an interview, and it wasn't exactly flowing. But then he seemed to recognise me from last week, and we had a little sit down and a chat about the documentary being on Amazon Prime. Apparently his little daughter thinks that they should get free Amazon Prime because her daddy's on the telly now, which I think is a good idea. And yeah, he was just incredibly warm and just brilliant to work with. But all of the players, without exception, and I haven't worked on many of these media access days in recent years because I've been working on preview of the season, which always TX is at about the same time that these media access days happen. But I made sure I could do the Ipswich one. There's always been one or two players that don't want to do it, or they try and get out of it, or they say, I'm not saying that, or they not necessarily rude. I don't think I've experienced players being rude on media access days, but players that have just sort of given off the impression of, why am I being made to do this? all of the Ipswich players just had loads of enthusiasm. They all made eye contact. They all said hello to every single person that they were working with, shook hands with people. They were all just fantastic people from what I could see.
Yeah, and it just confirms what we know, I guess, about this brilliant team, our fantastic captain and our genius, quote, Premier League Stories manager, Kieran McKenna, as well. Mikey, really fantastic insights. We kind of knew that the level of wider interest and media commitment was going to be a different level, and this just kind of confirms what we were talking about, as we said, at the start of the summer. Do you want to just repeat some of the plugs of where stuff is at that's already out and where we might find stuff that's due to come in the next week or so? I'll put a screenshot of your brilliant Premier League Stories title there, but that one's already out and available on demand, isn't it?
Yeah, that one's out and available on demand. So I watched it on Amazon Prime, but I believe that they sometimes disappear off Amazon Prime. So catch it pretty quickly if you can. I believe it's on Sky On Demand. It's on Discovery Plus, I believe. And if you're watching overseas, it will be on Optus Sport on there on demand in Australia. It's on NBC Peacock in the USA. So all of the Premier League broadcasters have access to it, so they should have it available on their on demand service. I'd like to also just say a massive thank you. Obviously, this was a real passion project of mine, and I at times was very anxious about it because I was thinking, I've got to make this really good because so many people I know are going to watch it and they care so much about this subject. So it really does mean an awful lot to have had all of the lovely feedback that I've had. I'm glad that it's tugged on a few heartstrings. Obviously, I selected the music. Paul fantastically edited it to the pictures. And we at times we really wanted to sort of tap into that sort of emotional aspect. And at times the music was a bit more epic for those big moments like the Sarmiento goal. And yeah, I'm just really happy that it's been so sort of beautifully
well
received.
Yeah, and a real, as I said at the start, a real endorsement for all of your heart and the soul that you put into it as well, Mikey. As I say, it's a love story to Ipswich Town. It's a love story for Suffolk. I guess shout out for one particular. I mean, lots of bits we need to give a shout out to ITFC, I assume, for providing the footage. But there's a really lovely moment in the Exeter game, isn't there, where this guy, middle-aged guy with glasses, kind of looks up to the heavens as promotion is confirmed, and I think that's all of us. And I was lovely to see that included as well. So yeah, brilliant stuff. And under the other kind of under the skin stuff and the Matt Holland, Harry Clark stuff, is that YouTube or that might be broadcasted as well? So
the big interview with Harry Clark is definitely going to be on the Sky Sports Premier League channel, and it will be on TNT Sports as well. That is normally on before the preview show. I think the big interview is going to be on next week, so I think that's maybe a Thursday night or a Wednesday night. My old team Premier League preview, they're doing an Ipswich special themselves ahead of the Liverpool game, and I believe they've been to the training ground and there's been an interview with Kieran McKenna for that. So it's a completely different interview to the one that we've seen in that show, and that's more going to be looking ahead to the nitty gritty of the Liverpool game. So there's that to look forward to as well. I'm going to be working at the game, so keep an eye out for me. I'm going to be, ironically, in and out of pubs, but with a cameraman. Again, it's going to be my mate
so
David.
That's a Greyhound.
If we can get permission, we'll definitely be filming at the Greyhound. We need to film Liverpool fans as well. And then during the game, you might see me pitch side trying to point the cameraman in the right direction while also trying to watch the game while also remaining as professional as I can be.
No knee slides when we score a thunderbee from 30 yards. Mikey, brilliant stuff. Oh, super excited. Thank you so much for being so open and transparent with all the stuff behind the scenes. It's the stuff the nerdy stuff that we kind of love. So great to hear that. And I'm really excited for what's to come. And we'll keep you folks posted of things that are when they're released, and I'm sure Mikey will give us the certainly the Telegram group is a useful place for that kind of stuff. But here on Blue Monday, we'll try and squeeze as much blood orange juice out of Mikey Penty-Smith cheers as we can as well. Before we go, and before Mikey slags me off for my middle class drinks of choice. I need to confirm whether this third packet of XL Adrenaline Panini cards is a waste of space as well. Lucas Paqueta, did I already get him? I'm not sure. Matome's quite good, isn't he? Pedro Porro, a shiny Declan Rice, a shiny Bernardo Silva. I mean, this is good for everyone else apart from
players,
me.
yeah, but they're just not. It's not Luke Wolfenden, is it?
No, Zinchenko, Palmieri, and Goodison Park. Waste of space. The message, kids: don't waste your money on an excellent drilling. No, I can't say that. Spend your money wisely. Gamble responsibly. I don't know what I'm saying. Mikey, great to chat. Thank you so much for, as I said, for your insights. No doubt you'll be back for more as well next week and at various points throughout the season. And any predictions for Nice before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I think we're going to start to see some more goals in that Nice game. I think we're going to say 3-1. And just a final word from me. I just want to say another thank you to Ipswich Town. I didn't say when I was talking about the media access today how good they were as hosts. They were brilliant. There was the Combat Coffee guys were outside. They laid on pizzas for everyone that was working there. Just the club is just class from top to bottom at the moment, and it's just brilliant. And long may it continue.